That's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
And the crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
Dave Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's the flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh, shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 4. We got technically football today. It is Sunday. Where I am, I'm in Central Time. It's 12:18 a.m. And it is time to lock in your fantasy football lineups. And what we found here is that people like asking questions to a person about their lineup. And I've made it perfectly clear a bunch of times. I'm just a guy that I spend a lot of time on this. So naturally, I'm going to be better than somebody that is just kind of doing this part-time just because of my sheer time dedication to fantasy football, to the NFL, because of my YouTube channel. But I'm not like one of these guys that's like an expert at, what is that? I mean, fantasy football is so random, and you can set up yourself for success by having the most optimal lineup. But at the end of the day, like sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and there's nothing you could do to predict it. Sometimes your first round draft pick gets injured. There is just a little bit of randomness to this. So the word expert's kind of weird when it comes to fantasy football, but I think sometimes you just need a guide to be like, hey, am I crazy? This is what I'm thinking. My gut's telling me to do this. Like, how insane is that? And somebody, it doesn't have to be an expert. You just want a regular person to be like, that's pretty crazy, but I get where you're coming from. Or like, dude, let me try to walk you off the ledge. So I want to be that guy for you guys. So I'm going to give you, in the meantime, until we get some questions start popping in here, I'm going to give you some of the latest injury news because there's pretty big news out of Denver. Marvin Mims, who had no injury designation all week, has popped up on the injury report with a hip injury, which is kind of meaningful right now. All right, we got Johnny D in the chat. Needs some desperate help. Went 0 QB as a draft strategy, and I'm 0-3 with great depth. Studs should have been duds. My RB2s are Hall, Pollard, Benson, Montgomery, Thomas Jr., and London have been non-factors. My only standouts have been Irving and Lamb, McMillan as my RB1 wide receiver flex. I'm in a 10-team league PPR, and I feel like this team is extremely risky, boom, bust material. They should be performing, but they're not. My other wide receivers are Trey Tucker and Debo, who I picked off waivers, unfortunately. And Debo definitely was available on waivers because it's a 10-team league, because I'm in a 12-team league. And even in my league, it was way later in the draft that he was coming off the board. I feel like I'm stuck with what I have, even convincing myself that this might be a string of bad luck thoughts. Yeah, thanks for the question and giving me the context, because a lot of times I get a question and it's like really hard to answer without a little bit of context. So you got yourself a pretty deep roster because you decided not to go quarterback. And look, I've been in that position before where I go, I'm not going to draft a quarterback in the first, second, third round unless one of these 3 quarterbacks is available. And then once those quarterbacks aren't available, you kind of go, okay, well, I'm not going to reach for, that other tier, the tier 2 quarterback until I get to round 5. And then those ones go. And then you tell yourself, you kind of keep finding yourself behind the curve. And this is what happened to me this year. I wanted to draft Bo Nix. I thought he was like, because of his running ability, I thought he was one of those last quarterbacks in one of those tiers. Obviously, things haven't gone great for Bo Nix this year, but the expectation going into the season, I thought I could get him in the 5th round, and I thought he would have top 5 fantasy potential because of what we saw last year. When Bo Nix went off the board, I didn't have a great backup plan. So then I went, okay, I'm going to get Baker Mayfield. I shit you not, the next time I was on the clock, there was an opportunity for me to draft, I believe it was Travis Hunter, and I was going to pick again in 4 picks. And I thought, well, I should have got Baker Mayfield, but I got Travis Hunter. And when it came back to me, boom, Baker Mayfield was off the board. So that kept happening over and over. Then it was going to be, I was going to draft, another quarterback, and I believe it was Jordan Love. It happened again. I got myself out of this by trading. So what you do have when you don't draft a wide receiver, a quarterback, as you mentioned, you have depth, crazy depth. And you have to figure out how you can use your depth to have a trade. Okay. So what I would do, and this is what I did, I went through the league. I looked at each team and I went, okay, which position am I strongest in? And then B, which team in this league has the biggest hole where I have my biggest strength? And for me, it was a person that drafted Lamar Jackson in the 3rd round. But because of that, he was missing a big player. It could have been a flex, a running back, or a wide receiver, but it was obvious that there was a big wide receiver 1 missing. So because I drafted so many wide receivers, I ended up trading Mike Evans and Jordan Love for Lamar Jackson. Every single fantasy football calculator that I put that trade into said I was losing the trade. But of course, those fantasy football calculators, they don't account for a breakout player. I knew Ricky Pearsall was going to break out. So you have the context of your roster. These AI softwares don't understand, right? They just go off of their own projections, which are often wrong anyway. So I would look at where you're strongest, okay? You have Bucky Irving. Okay, Bucky Irving is my favorite running back in this year, going into this year. Okay, so I think Bucky Irving is huge. Obviously, if you drafted CeeDee Lamb, then I imagine you got CeeDee Lamb in your first round pick. When it came back, you drafted Bucky Irving. Okay, so you got 2 set and forget players right there. Then this is when your team gets a little shaky. You got McMillan. Lamb and McMillan is your RB wide receiver flex. So I'm trying to think about your team here. Okay, there it is. So you got your RB2s are Hall, Pollard, Benson, Montgomery. Dude, I don't see a problem with this team. Now you got to think, week 1, the Packers destroyed the Lions. Okay, but week 2, the Lions got their offense going against the Bears, and now they're back. I look at Montgomery as a weekly start. You know what I mean? Let me see where they have him ranked this week. Okay. David Montgomery, is he really RB 30 against Cleveland? I guess it's probably more to do with Cleveland. After a monster game in week 3, David Montgomery is the RB 8 in fantasy points per game, averaging 13.5 touches. Dude, this is what I would do. David Montgomery is a flex every single week, period. End of discussion. If you're deepest at receiver, then move David Montgomery to your RB2. So you'll have Breece Hall, RB1, David Montgomery, RB2, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1. Then you have CeeDee Lamb and Oh my God. Yeah, you have Bucky Irving. Dude, your team is loaded. Maybe you haven't started winning yet, but there's nothing wrong with your team. You got Bucky Irving. You're going to flex David Montgomery. You're going to go Bucky Irving, RB1. RB2 is going to be Breece Hall. You're going to go CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1. Oh, but CeeDee's hurt. Okay, I get that. How long is CeeDee supposed to be hurt? I think you can get by with Debo. Also, Romeo Doubs. Look for Romeo Doubs. Also, another one that may be available on waivers, Christian Kirk. Now, Christian Kirk made his debut last week, and he's that intermittent, shallow guy that's going to get, allow Nico Collins to take the top off. So he's very, very important. And with the injuries that have been going on with Houston, they've had to go with Xavier Hutchinson, who is actually a family friend, but that was not the plan going into this season. So they need to put Christian Kirk in a role that's going to get him heavily utilized. Think about it. They didn't kind of like bring him in on a pitch count. He had 8 targets, I believe, in his first game with the Texans, and it's only going to go up from here. So there's guys like that you can still pick up on waivers, especially if you're in a 10-team league. I would almost guarantee that Christian Kirk would be available. Okay. But your team is loaded. Like Breece Hall, Bucky Irving, those are very good running backs that you are going to be able to start week in and week out. And what is the timeline for CeeDee Lamb's injury? Let me check that really quick, because it looks like all you're really missing is one wide receiver. And then I'm going to look at what you're saying here. CeeDee Lamb injury update, Packers week 4. Okay, so will CeeDee Lamb, he appears on the injury report this week, out ankle, no other receivers. Lamb has reeled in 16 balls so far this game. Okay, so has them taken on the pack. What is this? You're not telling me if he's playing or not. CeeDee Lamb injury. CeeDee Lamb. Cowboys to decide if CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Booker go on IR next week. Okay. So obviously he's still dealing with an injury, but that's okay. You can get, there's if you're in a 10-team league, there's simply too many good receivers out there for them all to be rostered. Troy Franklin is somebody that I'm looking at heavily this week. Marvin Mims just made his way onto the injury report with a hip. Okay. Now, I know he didn't have a great week last week, but if you go to the week before, Troy Franklin had 11 targets. He had over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. He had over a 20-point game. And this is the upside that said to Denver, hey, let's send Devon Vele to the Saints. And they traded him. He was our 7th-round draft pick last year. And our offense right now looks like we could have used him, right? There's even some debate among Bronco fans like whether that was a good trade or not. But we flipped a 7th round for a 3rd and a 6th. So the value is there. But the only reason we did this trade was because Troy Franklin had an amazing camp. And of course, he already has rapport with Bo Nix back when he played with Oregon. So the Bengals, this is a get right game for the Broncos. And Denver is going to, Sean Payton's going to want to put a show on national television to show everybody how good his quarterback is. He's going to take a lot of deep shots. And I think Troy Franklin is going to have himself a big game. But until CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, this is how you need to be looking at it week to week. You got to, you're not going to get somebody probably that you can just plug and play. Okay. You're going to have to look at matchups and you're going to have to get a little creative until CeeDee Lamb comes back. Now at the quarterback position, which is where you are having the biggest issue. You said, although I have Caleb Williams, I'm debating on dropping someone like Debo for Justin Fields. You're debating on dropping Debo for Justin Fields for a potential stock with Hall, but man, dropping to 0-4 would really be upsetting. You should roll with Caleb Williams right now. I get the fantasy value with Justin Fields. I really do. And plus, your team is so loaded that you can afford to drop a player. And I was having to tell myself this the other day. It's like at some point you have enough 10-point projections on your roster, right? You can't hoard them all. Like you can only start 2 of them, right? And if you've gone, 3 weeks now and you got 3 guys on your bench that you're just kind of hoarding, like this is what the waiver wire's for. It's there for you to pick somebody up that you can actually utilize. Not every spot is supposed to be like, let me pick him up, stash him on my bench and just wait for him to break out, because that a lot of times that never comes. It's okay to do that with a couple players, but if you find yourself doing it with, 80% of your bench, it's like, okay, sometimes you got to just cut ties with the Deebo Samuel and say, you know what, out of all my guys, this is the one that I think is going to be the most unreliable, the one I'll regret the most. It's no different than when an NFL roster has to put somebody on the practice squad. Hey, if some other team picks up a guy from our practice squad, make sure it's not somebody that we're going to totally regret. And that's how you have to look at your waiver wire. But I would absolutely stick with Caleb Williams. I would stick with David Montgomery and Breece Hall as starters every single week. And then at the wide receiver position, things are kind of weird right now with Lamb being out. But I think there's better options available. Look for Christian Kirk, look for Troy Franklin. Romeo Doubs could have a big game. He's leading the Packers right now in target share and in routes run. I know that there's not a wide receiver 1 per se in Green Bay, but with Jaden Reed being injured, I could see this Cowboys game. They gave up 72 points in their last 2 weeks. So this is a game where you could potentially rely on one of these Packer receivers more than you would on a regular day. But I would keep your head up. This is a really good team that you have. And even if you haven't started winning yet, I don't think that that's any indication that your team is bad. CeeDee Lamb's hurt. I mean, your number 1 overall pick, number 3 overall pick probably, hasn't been playing. So, of course, you're struggling a little bit. But I wouldn't sell the farm unless you could get creative and try to package CeeDee Lamb with Caleb Williams. And then maybe somebody would be interested on doing that type of trade, but you might hate yourself for it later. But I think the key here is just to stay patient and use the waiver wire more. It's your best friend. Every year I've won the championship, I've made 20 waiver wire additions. I've already made 13 or 14 this year. We got Joshua in the chat. He said, here's my team: Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Matthew Golden, Breece Hall, Javonte, Kelsey, Hampton. I have Judy, Montgomery, Herbert, Tyler Warren. Any substitutions? Oh man, you're loaded. Okay. So Mahomes, Jefferson, Puka Nacua. Obviously, Nacua is the number 1 wide receiver this week. Justin Jefferson is somebody you're going to start for, no matter how weird it may seem with the quarterback or being international, it doesn't matter. He's too good. You simply start him. Javonte Williams, I'm not as high on Javonte as a lot of people, because Javonte Williams, he's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. He had 2 touchdowns in that Cowboys game, in the first half of that Cowboys game. And I think that's why his numbers look so good right now. I expect, if I had Javonte Williams, I would be trying to sell high right now. I would absolutely be trying to sell high, especially if I found myself holding, multiple good running backs. Like Amari and Hampton is an RB1 for the rest of this season. That's a done deal. We saw Amari and Hampton last week come in for Najee Harris, and he was amazing. I hate to say it, but he was awesome. So, I mean, there's your RB1, and you also have Breece Hall. So you got 2 wide receivers, you got 2 great running backs, And if you really wanted to flex a player, it's got to be Montgomery, in my opinion, every single time. There is no scenario where I don't start David Montgomery. There's no scenario. Like, he's just too good. Did you see him running the rock on, what was it, Monday Night Football against the Ravens? I mean, no, Sunday Night Football, I think it was. He's just way too good. There should never be a player that good on your bench. If he is, you should be trading him. You shouldn't have him just sitting on the bench. Like, package him with, Patrick Mahomes and get Lamar Jackson. Somebody out there may be desperate for a running back, but put him to use. If you can't start him, at least try to trade him. But in your case with your team, that would be my team: Mahomes, Jefferson, Nacua, Breece Hall, and Omarion Hampton, flexing David Montgomery. And then Matthew Golden, Javonte Williams would be on my bench. I would be trying to actively shop Javonte Williams. I sell high. Should I start TJ Hockenson over Jake Ferguson? This is a good question. I have TJ Hockenson, and it feels like every single week we've been waiting for TJ Hockenson to break out, and it hasn't happened yet. In my case, I have Dalton Kincaid, and I made the swap last week, and I'm really thankful I did. And you won't regret it either. You should absolutely go with Jake Ferguson, and Jake Ferguson might be elevated into a top 3 tight end this week. I would say if you have Jake Ferguson on your fantasy team, he is a must start this week. I would almost go as far as flexing Jake Ferguson if you have, you may be one of the guys out there that has a tight end that you like, a Darren Waller, a Brock Bowers or a Tyler Warren, but Jake Ferguson is an absolute start this week. He's going to have a big game. And when you look at his target share with CeeDee Lamb being out of the game, a lot of these targets are going to Jake Ferguson. And I believe we're going to get into a shootout in Sunday Night Football. So I would go Jake Ferguson all day. Joshua said, thinking about putting Warren, but now I find myself having 3 rookies starting. And I never feel bad about it. You know what I mean? Like, as long as the rookies are good, that's how most of the time I'm able to win my leagues, is because a lot of the guys that I play with don't keep up with the rookies. Like, of course, your Ashton Genty, those guys, of course, everyone knows them. But like the Omarion Hampton, right? That is a draft pick that you could you probably made that in like the 4th, 5th round. This is just how the league is. You got players coming out of college more pro ready than ever. I mean, look how polished Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb. Look how polished these running backs are coming out of college. Bijan Robinson is the number 1 fantasy player this year. He's only been in the league for 2 seasons. So, it's not necessarily a bad thing that you're starting a bunch of rookies, as long as it's the right rookies. Traded Brock Bowers plus Chase Brown to get Genty and Egbuka. Okay, I love that trade. That's a very good trade. Number 1, the Browns offense, or the Raiders offense, very concerning. Very concerning. Chip Kelly offense looked pretty good week 1 against the Patriots. Since then, it's looked terrible. And last week they were absolutely dominated. So you were able to sell Brock Bowers, who is going to have a couple games that you're going to feel like, damn, I shouldn't have sold him. But it's only going to be, maybe 4 games here or there where he gets, 18, 20 points. Like, I think he had 300-yard games already. After week 1 against the Patriots, he had a 100-yard game. And I think I wrote it right here. Let me see. Brock Bowers. Yeah, Brock Bowers. Geno had 362 passing yards in that game. sixth career game with 350 passing yards. Brock Bowers, third 100-yard receiving game. So, I mean, Brock Bowers has done it 3 times, so he only did it twice last year. So, yeah, I mean, maybe once or twice you might feel like you're regretting it, but Chase Brown, that offense is stale, and Chase Brown's averaging like 1.9 yards per carry. It's like historically bad what Chase Brown's doing right now. So, yeah, you got rid of those 2 guys that I consider liabilities. You got Jeanty, who is, and I mean, I think he's going to be maybe a straight wash with Brock Bowers to Jeanty. Points wise, you're looking at a wash maybe. But then you upgrade massively with Igbuka. I can never say his name right. I mean, he's doing incredible things. And now Mike Evans with the hammy, I mean, he already is the number 1 target in Tampa. I think you won that trade by a landslide. 12-man half PPR, 2 flex. 2 flex can be tight end. Okay. Caleb Williams, Jeanty, Tony Pollard, Rome Odunze, JSN, Jawan Johnson, Igbuka, Golden, Packers kicker, Packers defense, bench, Drake May, Calvin Ridley, Josh Downs, Tootin, the Bills, CDs in the IR spot. See, I thought you couldn't put CeeDee Lamb in IR until he's officially on IR, because I think the Cowboys haven't officially put him on IR, but that's just a side note. I didn't know we could do that. Do you play ESPN or fantasy? All right. So 12-man, half PPR, 2 flex. Okay, Caleb Williams is your starting quarterback. No competition there. Rome Odunze needs to be starting, non-negotiable. And then Igbuka is your wide receiver 2. I would flex JSN, and then Jeanty would be my RB2. The Packers defense is a great option. I would consider picking up Houston's defense for tomorrow if it's available. Houston, I know the Texans have had their problems, but it hasn't been because of their defense. And the Titans have been one of the worst offenses. And I could see the Dallas Packer game going back and forth. And I that's what I did. I have Green Bay's defense. It was a tough call. It really was. But I ultimately ended up picking up the Texans defense and giving them the nod this week. Would you trade Tyreek and T. Higgins for Tony Pollard and ETN and Flowers? So really, the way I read this is Higgins for Tony Pollard, ETN, and Flowers. It depends on your running back situation. Like, do you have a massive need for running back? Because if that's the case, I would make that trade. But if you're sitting pretty with, like Breece Hall and what would be like another Bucky Irving, then I would probably pass. But if you really need a running back, then yeah, I mean, Tyreek Hill is not going to have. I don't even know if Tyreek Hill is somebody that I would even start as a wide receiver 1 or 2. He's more of a flex play this year. Now Darren Waller coming back, maybe that can give this Dolphins offense a pulse. But right now, I would make that trade because the way I'm reading it is T. Higgins for Pollard, ETN, and Flowers. And Zay Flowers might be the biggest boom or bust wide receiver week in and week out. You're talking about a guy that'll get you 40 points and then 3 the next week, and then, 7 and then 18 and then 35. And I mean, he's just very unpredictable. So I think Zay Flowers is somebody I would flex. And then you got Tony Pollard and ETN, depending on your running back needs. Those are startable guys. And then he said, I think the Packers going to hold them below 17 points, maybe even under 13 points. If they do, then I would be surprised. But I mean, I could definitely see it. I mean, the Packers defense is legit this year. Sometimes you just got a feeling, and for some reason, I just have a feeling this game's going to be a little more back and forth. It's just a feeling, and I could be totally wrong, and I can live with that. It wouldn't be the first time. Braylon Allen and Kendre Miller, better chances of becoming full-time starters, do you think? Kendre Miller. Let me see the stats so far. Let me see. He took 7 carries for 27 yards, bought both of his targets for 9 yards in Sunday's 44-13 loss to the Seahawks. I mean, I don't really like any of their chances to taking the starting role. I mean, there was a lot of talk about Braylon Allen taking Breece Hall his job, and then Breece Hall came out week 1 and was like, shh. I mean, Braylon Allen does get a lot of the red zone, not targets, but handoffs, the I need 1-2 yard situations on the goal line. So there's definitely upside there, but it's like Breece Hall and freaking Alvin Kamara. Like, I'm not going to bet on any of them losing their job. Micah can't wait to sack Dak. That's true. And Rashawn Gary might be the one that gets to get him the most. He's leading the Packers right now. Packers going to play so hard for the Micah revenge game. And I actually look at it the other way. I think the Cowboys are going to play so hard for to be on the winning side of this. Now, if the game was in Green Bay, I would feel more like what you're saying. But because they're going to Dallas, they're going to Jerry World, and Micah Parsons is coming back like as a villain. I mean, he just met the Packers. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure they want to win for him, but maybe not any more than they want to win anyway. The other teams known Micah Parsons since he got into the NFL, and now he's joined the arch enemy. Like, if anyone should be emotional about this game, it's Dallas. Green Bay should just be happy that they ended up with Micah Parsons, but Dallas should be the one that is out there trying to prove something. So that is where I'm at with this game. And I'm cheering for the Packers, by the way. It's my second favorite team. Born in Wisconsin. I was at Brett Favre's last game as a Green Bay Packer. The roots run really deep in Green Bay. But I'm just looking at this as an outsider saying, I think the Cowboys are going to be the team with the chip on their shoulder coming Sunday Night Football. Dallas fans going to be chanting, "Fuck you, Jerry. Fuck you, Jerry." Yeah. I mean, they were chanting when I was in the military. I got in an accident. So the Wounded Warrior does this thing called the Warrior Games. It's like adaptive sports for injured people. And where we did trials, it's kind of like the Olympics, where you got to go and you do the trials. And then if you're good enough, then, you go to the Warrior Games. And where trials was, I was staying in this hotel, and I was down at the lobby looking at the wall, and I'm seeing the Dallas Cowboys, like 2018, 2019, 2020. And I was like, I went to the front desk and I'm like, what's up with all these Cowboy thing? And she's like, oh yeah, the Cowboys do their like training camp here every year. And I was like, no way. I couldn't believe it. And no shit, I was staying at the hotel that the Cowboy, it wasn't like a fancy hotel or anything. It was very dorm style. So I could see why the Cowboys chose that. But it was so cool. But anyway, this year at that training camp, the fans were all out there chanting to pay Micah. So they were making, their voices heard, and it was awkward. They can play as hard as they want. Dallas sucks. Wentz or Geno Smith or Mariota? Wentz, Geno Smith, or Mariota? Ooh. Why are those your options? God. It's like that scene in Superbad where he's like, it was between that or Muhammad. And he's like, why the fuck would it be between that or Muhammad? God. Well, Pittsburgh's defense has been struggling. Carson Wentz is coming off of a really impressive game. Geno Smith, I don't know what to even do with Geno Smith right now. Marcus Mariota is probably my guy out of this group. I think I would have to go with Marcus Mariota, as crazy as that sounds. Marcus Mariota, a revenge game, going back to Atlanta. I am just trying to give you some kind of edge here. I mean, the fact that he's going to want to have a really good game to show Atlanta, like, you should have believed in me. And he's coming off a really good game as well, So I think that would be the move for me, Marcus Mariota. And then for the Raiders are going against the Bears. I could see Geno against the Bears. He's kind of due for a good game because it's been 2 bad weeks in a row. And like week 1, he threw for 350 yards. So I wouldn't blame you if you went Geno this week, just because that game feels like it could be a 35-31 type of game. But I probably go Marcus Mariota because Atlanta just Atlanta just doesn't have it right now. And it kind of feels like when it's like a drowning person and Atlanta's like about to just get crushed, right? Because I feel like we have big questions about Atlanta, and with Dan Quinn and the Commanders, it's like we kind of know more about the Commanders than we do Atlanta. Like the question marks we have with the Commanders are much smaller question marks. Like you kind of know what you're going to get week in and week out. Disciplined, like you're going to get good football play from this team. So I think I would go with Marcus Mariota. Start Steelers or 49ers? Ooh, I would go Steelers. I would go Steelers this week because number one, and a real upset of the week is not one that people are like, that's an upset, right? If I told you that my upset of the week was the Pittsburgh Steelers winning, would you really think that as an upset? Probably not, right? But the Steelers are 3.5-point underdogs going into Dublin. My real upset is the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the 49ers. I know it sounds crazy, but like that's why it's called an upset. And on national TV, they don't even have the balls to call it an upset. They call it upset alert. Oh, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it could happen. That is so cowardly. That way, if it doesn't happen, they can say, I never said it was going to happen. I said it could happen. Well, anything could happen. So I'm telling you why it will happen, okay? I think it's going to happen because, number one, Liam Cohen, my favorite head coach from this cycle, right? He had time with Baker in LA. He comes from Sean McVay, and Sean McVay owns Kyle Shanahan. Okay. I feel like Liam Cohen's going to put a really great game plan together, and I think it's time for the 49ers to drop one. I think Jacksonville goes in there, has a great game plan, plays their best game of the year, and comes away with a gritty 17-20 win. And because of that, I would say go with the Steelers defense this week. Also, I'm going to go against Justin Jefferson. Does that change the start at all? Jaden Daniels out. Yep. Who to flex? Moore, Henderson, Golden. I'm thinking Henderson this week. I'm thinking Henderson because, look, this might be one of the weeks that Henderson gets the job and never gives it back. I mean, it took, 3 fumbles for Henderson to actually get in the game last week. But when he got in, he looked really good. And I think he's going to have his opportunities in this game. Carolina's given up, I think, 7 games in the last 15 where they've given up 200 or more rushing yards. That's insane. Like, that's historically bad. So you got a running back going against that group. I would lean. I mean, even last week they shut out Atlanta and Bijan had over 100 all-purpose yards. So Matthew Golden, I'm just not there yet with him. And because of that, it's between Moore and Henderson, and the connection to DJ Moore hasn't really been there either. It's been more Rome Odunze. So I think I would go Henderson, but I wouldn't blame you if you went DJ Moore, but I'm leaning just strictly off matchups. I'm probably leaning Henderson. He has no McLaurin and Noah Brown. Does that change anything? The guy you're playing? Well, what do you mean, Jay? Does that change? I don't know if you're talking to me or if you're talking on. You're going against start the Steelers or 49ers. He has no McLaurin. Well, I mean, McLaurin's hurt. So I have McLaurin. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about Marcus Mariota. No, Marcus Mariota. Because, look, honestly, Terry McLaurin hasn't really done anything this year. I mean, Terry McLaurin's been, it's been really frustrating. That's my 3rd round draft pick, and I finally got to a point this week where I benched him even before I waited to see that he was going to be out this week. Because remember, the MRI that they did came back negative, and then he was projected 12 points again. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Until Terry McLaurin shows me otherwise, he's on my bench. So, I don't see him as a player that's going to, make or break Mariota's day. He just hasn't been that kind of guy this year. Would you trade Zay and K9 for Neighbors and Henderson? Yeah, I would. It feels good to say yes to a trade finally. I feel like I just say no. Every time someone asks me a trade, it's just been, I'm not even trying to say no a lot. It's just been naturally a lot of no's, but this is a yes. I mean, Zay Flowers is a boom bust guy, and he could have a 40-point game or a 7-point game, and you wouldn't be surprised. Kenneth Walker, a lot of injury concerns with Kenneth Walker. He's good. He's not great in my opinion. Neighbors, I mean, look, Neighbors they just bench Russell Wilson because they're not getting Neighbors involved. The message is clear. Neighbors needs at least 10 targets a game, period. End of story, no matter what. So none of these guys have Neighbors' upside consistently. And then Henderson, you may be buying low right now. And that's what I'm going to keep telling people with Henderson. We don't know yet what he's going to do this week, right? If he makes the most of his opportunity, this could be a championship winning trade. And if Jackson Dart, you don't think a young rookie quarterback's going to be going, where's Malik Neighbors? That's his guy every play. Every time he's worried, I'm sure Malik Neighbors is like, bro, just throw it up, throw it up, throw it up, throw it up. Like, just throw me the ball. And yeah, I think I would absolutely go with that trade. It's a little close. I'm not going to lie, because the Ravens offense is much more of a machine than the Giants. But I think that's one I would be willing to pull the trigger on. And then Carter said, so does going against Jefferson change anything? No. It's just, it hasn't been there this year. I mean, and honestly, if JJ McCarthy was in this game, like, it would even be worse. Like, I think Carson Wentz is even an upgrade at this point, because we have 8 quarters now of JJ McCarthy, and only one of them was good. But no, I think they'll be just fine. I think JJ has another frustrating day at the office tomorrow. Bro, Golden has the Cowboys. Yeah, I did look at that schedule. If there's ever a week to play Golden, it's this week. I wouldn't blame you. For going with that, but keep in mind, Golden doesn't lead the Packers in target share. So, like, we have, let me see. We have what I think I wrote about this yesterday with Romeo Doubs. Matthew Golden is somebody that, if you're not going to start Romeo Doubs, it's got to be Matthew Golden, right? And depending on which writer you follow, like, some of them are saying Matthew Golden's definitely going to be the guy this week. Other people are saying it's going to be Romeo Doubs. Matthew Golden hasn't gotten, the trust yet. I don't believe any of it. I think nobody knows. I really do. Like, I think the Packers don't run their offense in a way where it's like, we know for sure week in and week out which guy it's going to be. I think you just kind of throw out your best feeling and you just hope that you're right. I do think it's between those two. Now, would I be shocked if Dontayvion Wicks has a big game? No. He looked awesome Thursday night against the Commanders. It's just a really hard prediction. It really is. It's a very hard thing to predict. But no, I don't think starting Matthew Golden is like insane by any means. I just think there's a little risk to go with it. And if it's framed as like a can't miss start, I disagree with that. But don't disagree with taking the risk. Yo, who do I play as wide receiver 1, 2, and flex? Tyreek, Zay, Debo, JJ. Well, I mentioned this earlier, but Darren Waller is going to make his season debut for the Dolphins. Now, that could help out Tyreek Hill. You got Zay. Automatically, Zay is going to be one of the starters for me. I would probably go Zay, Debo, JJ here. I would go Debo because Terry McLaurin's hurt. I think they're going to be trying to utilize, especially for Marcus Mariota. It's like, hey, get the ball out of his hands super quick, snap the ball. Find a way to get Debo the ball, whether it's, an end around or a wide receiver screen. I think the game plan is going to be a heavy dose of Debo. And then when you get down to the red zone, it's like Debo's your guy down there, especially with Terry out. So this week I would go Zay, Debo, and JJ. And I feel good about that. Also, who do I play for tight end? Kelsey or Ferguson? Ferguson all day. All day, Ferguson. Ferguson. I can't say it enough. Ferguson. If you have Ferguson on your team, you need to play Ferguson. This is going to be a big week for Ferguson. Now Ferguson is, and I'm going to tell you, he's got a 22% target share through the first 2 weeks of the season. That number jumped to 25% after he had a week 3 performance where he had 14 targets. Like, think about that. 14 targets. I mean, with all of the hype going to George Pickens, it's easy to forget about Nate Ferguson. And it's easy to forget that he was second to CeeDee Lamb last year in targets and receptions. Like, Dak Prescott is very comfortable getting Jake Ferguson involved, and he will be going to him a lot. That will be a focal point this week against the Packers. Green Bay struggled last week against David Njoku. They struggled against Harold Finin Jr. They had a combined 8 catches, 65 yards, 11 targets. And through 3 weeks now, the Packers have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends per game. So I think Ferguson has a shot to be the overall tight end 1 this week. Overall, of every tight end. Jake Ferguson. Did I keep calling him Nate Ferguson? Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson, if you have him, start him. Please. You can thank me later. And hold on. Whoa. Okay. Okay, there we go. My comments just froze for a second. And he said, okay, thanks. No problem. That's what I'm here for. So no Tyreek. I just don't feel good about Tyreek right now. And let me look at Fantasy Pros. Let's see where Tyreek Hill is being projected at. All right, we're going to go fantasy football wide receivers. All right, 1, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, JSN at 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson's, Malik Neighbors at 9. That tells you something. This guy has a quarterback that's never taken a snap, and still Malik Neighbors cracks the top 10. That's how much of a weapon he is. AJ Brown, Rome Odunze, Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, Zay Flowers, 14, Ladd McConkey, T-Mac, Ibuka, Ricky Pearsall, Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill comes in at 20 versus the New York Jets. So let's see. You had Debo, Justin Jefferson, and Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers was at 14. They have Debo Samuel at 25. They have Tyreek Hill at 20. So, I guess I'm wrong according to these projections because I have Debo a little bit higher. 1 second. I just got to drain the, gotta pee really quick. All right, I'm back. So anyway, I guess I'm higher on Debo than most. They got Debo at 25. I would probably have him around 20. Brian Thomas Jr. is at 22. I mean, Tyreek Hill, he keeps getting the benefit of the doubt. Tyreek Hill is the wide receiver 21 in fantasy points per game. He has a 23.7% target share, 2.41 receiving yards per game, and a 25.9% first read share. Tyreek Hill has 1 touchdown this season, but he's still looking for his first red zone target. He faces a Jets pass defense that's moved too high heavy last week, 66.7% against too high. Hill's usage has remained steady with a 23.1 target share, 2.16 yards per route run, and a 23.7 first read share. I worry that Hill will get shadow coverage from Sauce Gardner this week. Gardner allowed DK Metcalf and Mike Evans following them on 65 to 89% of their routes. Gardner allowed Metcalf to secure only 1 of his 4 targets for 11 scoreless receiving yards. Against Evan, Gardner allowed him to secure 3 of 5 targets with 27 yards and a score. Keep your expectations for Hill in check this week. Well, I think that's the kicker. I mean, the fact that he's going to be guarded by Sauce Gardner. I think that's like, if you got a toss up and it's like Debo, Tyreek, and one of them's being covered by the second best cornerback in the NFL, because it's not like, in Denver, which pisses me off, is like, that's how it should be. All right. Your best against our best. Denver defensively will not do that. I mean, I remember in the Browns game where Jerry Jeudy had like 200 yards. And I'm like, why don't they put Patrick Surtain on Jerry Jeudy? Like, it was Terrence Wallace, a practice squad guy we had to elevate because Riley Moss got hurt. But it's like, okay, after his first 2 80-yard touchdowns, why don't we pivot? Like, they're like, no, we're just going to keep doing this. And it drove me crazy. You should always put your best cornerback on the best receiver and shadow him the entire day. It's almost like you're trying to protect that player or something. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't understand it for the life of me. But at least in New York, the Jets let Sauce Gardner cover 1 wide receiver the entire game, 89% of the game at least. So yeah, I would definitely go the other way. All right, let's see. Did I miss any of the comments? I think I got most of the comments. Once again, if you guys have any questions, I'm not a fantasy football expert. I'm just a guy. Yo, we got Ginger in the chat. What's up, Ginger? Just woke up out of nowhere. Saw my boy had to pop up. Love you, buddy. Happy to have you in here, Ginger. Can't wait for football tomorrow. Hope you're having a good night. We're just talking fantasy football over here. Talking some fantasy football. And I guess it's time for me to look at my lineup and see if I need to make any last-second changes before this team is locked in. I got Xavier Worthy starting tomorrow, finally, after a long waiting period. I got Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Worthy, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Dalton Kincaid, Lamar Jackson, and then my flex. I've been torn on it all week, but I went with Romeo Doubs. And I'm switching to Troy Franklin. I'm switching to Troy Franklin because Marvin Mims popped up on the injury report today with a hip. And if that's the case, then Troy Franklin is probably going to lead this offense in targets. And against the Bengals, I think this is a get right game for the Broncos. I think their offense is going to have a lot of success. And if they do have a lot of success, it's going to be because Troy Franklin and Sutton probably both had a big game. I'm going to make that bold move. Part of me is saying, too, to flex Travis Hunter. It's like you're already calling the upset. Jacksonville upsets the 49ers. Why not go all the way and say Travis Hunter gets his first touchdown? All right, we got 3 ones that just popped up in here. Should I get Prater or Chase right now this week for kicker? I would go with Chase. Prater, I love Prater, but he's a little too inconsistent for me. He might just shank one for no reason. I think Chase the safer option. We benching Brian Thomas Jr. for Warren and Pickens? No, we're not. We're not benching Brian Thomas Jr. But why would you need to bench him for 2 players? Right? Wouldn't it just be 1 player, Warren and Pickens? Are you saying you can only start one of them? Start Mason or Jettas. Yeah. Why not? Caleb Williams or Justin Fields? Ah, man. Probably Caleb Williams. Coming off a really big game. Yeah, it was just 1, but I think that's something they can build off of. And I think the Raiders, I mean, look, Marcus Mariota just dropped 40 on him. So I think I would go with Caleb Williams. I think he gives you more upside as a passer, and I still think he can run for a touchdown. Justin Fields is a great fantasy quarterback, but are we even sure? Did they announce for sure that he's starting? Because that was something that was in question. Look, I think if Justin Fields is on your bench, I would go with Caleb Williams. But if he's on your waiver, I would pick Justin Fields up, see how he does this week. And if he does what he does week 1 again, then maybe you next week you pivot and then you go off of that. But I think this week, like, I just feel like Caleb Williams going against the Raiders is safer. Oh, start. Oh, I thought you were saying to start both of them. Mason. I love Mason. I'm a huge fan, and I drafted him on my team as well, and I feel like he's just starting to get going. But this is a game that I don't see Justin Jefferson having a huge game. Unfortunately, this is going to be a 16-19. Take the under in this one. But if you had to start one of them, it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the only touchdown, I would not be shocked if the only touchdowns in this game were rushing touchdowns. And if that's the case, it's going to be Mason. So let me see where Mason is ranked this week for running backs on Fantasy Pros. Bijan, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Jordan Mason, RB11. Just right after Amari and Hampton. And then at wide receiver, let's see. Justin Jefferson is, they have him at wide receiver 5. I really don't understand. Like, They have Justin Jefferson. Okay. Derek Brown has him at wide receiver 8. But Jamar Chase is like, he's at wide receiver 6. And it's like, last time the Broncos and Bengals played, Surtain was covering Chase. Chase had 3 catches for like 30 yards. And then the time before that, it was the first time Surtain and Jamar Chase went up against each other, and he had 1 catch for 9 yards in that game. I just think like the experts always have like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase in the top 5. And it's like, no matter what happens, they don't pivot. And I just don't know how I would feel about like having to rely on Justin Jefferson this week. Now, the fact that you're saying Justin Jefferson or Mason tells me you're flexing one of them too, which is pretty remarkable. I don't know how you got away with flexing Justin Jefferson, but hats off to you, because you obviously drafted your depth pieces the right way. I'm sure you probably have like Omari and Hampton and some really good rookies, maybe Tyler Warren. Let me see. Elite Fantasy Receivers has had a slow start to this season. The Elite Fantasy Receiver has had a slow start, talking about Justin Jefferson. No fault of his own. It's clear the Vikings QB situation is not in a great place, but J.J. McCarthy and now Carson Wentz still. Justin Jefferson continues to be effective for fantasy. Last week in a blowout win, he had 5 receptions for 75 yards. This week, he faces a Steeler team that's allowing the 10th fewest fantasy points. I think he's going to be lined up against Jalen Ramsey the entire game. A Steelers team that is allowing the 10th fewest fantasy points to receivers. There's a chance that the star corner, Joey Porter Jr., returns this week after injuring his hamstring in week 1. If that's the case, Porter, Jalen Ramsey, and TJ Watt are more than enough to make his life difficult for Carson Wentz. Jefferson remains a fantasy start, but he's likely going to put up wide receiver 2 numbers. Well, then why do you guys have him ranked at number 6? That's your expert note on Justin Jefferson. He's probably going to put up wide receiver 2 numbers, but you have him ranked right outside the top 5? That doesn't make any sense at all. It's just like, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like they put these receivers, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, they're always in the top 5, no matter how ridiculous or, unrealistic it seems, they're there. And then they're like a paragraph telling you that I wouldn't be shocked if they don't finish in the top 5. It's like, you're just covering your own ass in case you're wrong. Like, I feel like that's so much of people's projections are just like I said earlier, they don't even say who's your upset? They say upset alert, oh, this team's on upset alert. It's like, call an upset. I got the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Niners. They would say, oh, upset alert, the 49ers. But then if they don't lose, it's like, well, I said they were on upset alert. I didn't say they were going to get upset. It's like, okay, everybody's on upset alert every week. What are you talking about? But anyway, if they had a little more balls, I think they would be able to tell you what I think we all know. And that's that Justin Jefferson has the upside to make you look like an idiot if you bench him. We all get that. We know that Justin Jefferson at any given week can score multiple touchdowns, have over 100 yards, and have double-digit catches. We do. But at the end of the day, like, do we think that's going to happen this week? And that's where you have to be able to have balls and say, I don't. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Some people can't live with that. They say, I would rather start him, even if everything told me not to do it. I would rather start him because if he had a good week and he was on my bench, I couldn't live with myself. And if that's the case, then I get, whatever you have to do to live with you. But if you're not, one of those people that have to do anything and you can just look at it week to week, I think Justin Jefferson is maybe a wide receiver 15 this week. And I think that it read an article too saying to sit T. Higgins. How is that the case? Well, when Patrick Surtain's on Ja'Marr Chase, Riley Moss is covering T. Higgins. Last time that matchup happened, I was there. Week 17 in Cincinnati, Monday Night Football. Do you guys remember that? He had 11 catches for like 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. I just made a YouTube short on the Only Football podcast. You can watch the YouTube short. I put his stats in there. So why is T. Higgins not being projected as like a top 10 wide receiver, but they're writing articles saying like start, sit. They're saying to sit T. Higgins, and they're saying Ja'Marr Chase is a top 5 wide receiver. Okay, unless Surtain released a memo saying that he's going to be guarding T. Higgins on Monday, I don't understand that one either. Okay, and you said, yeah, I have Neighbors and Jason. Yeah, dude, you're loaded. You're absolutely loaded. Gosh, that's crazy. I would flex Mason, absolutely. Baker or Purdy? Baker or Brock Purdy? Ooh, Baker Mayfield. All day, baby. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield he just won't let you down. I mean, Baker Mayfield is the grittiest quarterback in the league, maybe. And that means that he is going to rise to the occasion every single time. This is a game that the Eagles very well might win, but it's not going to be because Baker Mayfield didn't give the Bucs a chance to win. It doesn't matter what receivers are available. It doesn't matter who they put out there. Baker's a winner. And because of the fact that he's going to put the team on his back, expect rushing yards, expect a rushing touchdown, expect Baker Mayfield to just have a day at the office where even if he loses the game, Baker can hang his hat on saying, I did everything I could for my team to win. I'm definitely starting Baker Mayfield in a game like this. And by the way, I have the 49ers being upset by Jacksonville. So I don't have Purdy having a big game. But even if everything was normal, I'm still going Baker. Sam Vitani said, Jaylen Warren or Javonte Williams as my RB2 behind Kamara for this week. Well, I would probably go Javonte Williams this week. I don't think a big game is around the corner for the Steelers-Vikings. I said take the under. You know, international game. I think it's going to be a slow game. I think it's possible that Jaylen Warren is going to have a rushing touchdown as well. But for whatever reason, the Packers-Cowboys game to me feels like the Cowboys are going to... This is the way I see the game. I know the Packers defense is incredible. I think Dak Prescott is going to have one of his best games in a long time. I think they're going to be down at the goal line a ton. And I think Javonte Williams could potentially have multiple touchdowns. And it's always great to have a player on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, because if your guy that you're playing is already done, all these players have already played, it's awesome to be like, I know exactly what I need from this player. And that's just a bonus, right? I'm not telling you to go for it because of that. But I think this is a week where Javonte Williams and the offense for the Cowboys are going to be able to score you some points. All right, we're finally getting the comments rolling in. I'll try to go through faster. Start Sutton, Odunze, or Devontae Adams. Rome Odunze all day. Rome all Dunze. JMO or Diggs? JMO. Fannin or Jawan? Jawan. Fannin looked pretty good. I'm going to go Jawan. Godwin probably playing too. Yeah, Godwin is playing. He's making his season debut with the after that ankle surgery, finally going to be out there. As a Broncos fan, what is your opinion on Harvey, and do you think his role will expand soon? Well, I was actually thinking about this today. I think the only reason that we haven't seen more of RJ Harvey is pass protection. There was a question asked to Sean Payton about RJ Harvey, and it was like, essentially, are we going to be utilizing him more? Like, yeah, RJ Harvey is somebody that we have a ton of plays for him. Like, it's like we want to use him. So as an outsider, just putting two and two together, it's very evident that Denver wants to use RJ Harvey more than they've been using him. But RJ Harvey, it hasn't shown that trustworthiness yet. And it's obvious that it's in pass protection. So we need to see RJ Harvey, like when Omarion Hampton came in, when Najee Harris went down, you knew like Omarion Hampton was like, okay, I'm the guy now. Like he took on that role, and he took that job, and there was never a consideration of going with the RB3 or letting someone else into that game. RJ Harvey needs to come into these games, and he needs to make his presence felt. I feel like at times he's coming into the game and he's just not making the most of his opportunities. And I do think once RJ Harvey, and it sucks because a lot of these running backs for Denver are like, I couldn't get into a rhythm because they don't let me play enough snaps. And you look at these players and it's like, you got to get Troy Franklin some touches. You got to get RJ Harvey some touches. What about Marvin Mims? Why hasn't he been getting touches? Oh yeah. What about Cortland Sutton? He's your number one. And you have 3 and outs to start the game. And it's like, well, yeah, a lot of these guys aren't getting their target share because we're not going on drives. We're having 3 plays and punting it. So when you can't run the football effectively, you can't sustain drives, you can't get these guys involved. I feel like right now, people say it's a good problem to have, to get all of these guys, need all of these weapons. We need to get them all involved. It's a good problem to have. But right now in Denver, it just feels like a problem, not even a good problem. So I'm hoping that one of these guys will step up, and I'm hoping that it's RJ Harvey, because if it's the running back, then that will probably lead to us being able to sustain drives and get other people involved. But until we start running the football effectively, I just don't see it getting any better. But that's a great question, because I think we all expected more out of RJ Harvey. If you have him, I wouldn't start him right now, but I wouldn't sell him yet either. I think he's a really good stash away until we see what this offense is going to look like. The Broncos are just a slow starting team. Sean Payton has kind of proven that that's his MO, unfortunately. Travis Etienne or Garrett Wilson? Travis Etienne or Garrett Wilson? I would probably go Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson as a flex this week. I mean, you're getting Justin Fields back. Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson had a really good rapport week 1. And I feel like if ETN goes off, for 20 points and he's on your bench, you're going to be disappointed. But if Garrett Wilson does it, you're going to really hate yourself. Like, why wouldn't I start Garrett Wilson? Some guys are just really good. Like Garrett Wilson, in my opinion, is up there with Justin Jefferson. And even though they're not wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 necessarily, I don't know if it gets any better than flexing somebody like Garrett Wilson. Like, and you have done something right. And like, that is the ultimate flex. Like, if I was playing somebody and they were flexing Garrett Wilson, I would be like, shit, I'm in trouble this week. Thoughts on Devon Achane rest of the season? I think he's the bright spot. And like the OGs on this channel know, man, when I was live streaming the draft, what was it, 2024 draft? The Broncos were on the clock. I believe it was in the 3rd round. And I'm like, please be Devon Achane. Please be Devon Achane. Please be. And then it wasn't. And then with the very next pick, the Dolphins took him. And I lost my mind. I threw a temper tantrum because this was a guy that I always loved coming out of college. Insanely fast, 4.2 40, like just a guy that you just knew was going to be a problem. All of the stuff the Dolphins are screwing up. The thing is Tua keeps throwing him the ball. I mean, this guy is getting like 10 targets a game. It's insane. Not to even mention like all of the rushing yards he's getting and receiving yards and touchdowns. So like to me, Devon Achane is a start, set and forget. Like I wouldn't even consider moving him. Really, no matter who I'm playing, he's starting. Travis Etienne for Debo. It depends what your running back situation's like. If you have Bucky Irving and Christian McCaffrey, sure. But then again, it also depends on what your wide receiver situation's like. Like if you don't have a wide receiver, overall, I mean, you got to keep in mind too, like Jaden Daniels is about to come back. Terry McLaurin has not been very consistent this year. So Deebo Samuel may be the guy that they're going to lean on more than any. And we know how high powered offense that offense can be with Jaden Daniels when he actually starts to get rolling. So if you're in a situation where you have 2 all-star running backs, I wouldn't be against pulling the trigger there. Start Juwan Johnson or Genty. Genty, tight end premium scoring. Okay. 1.25 for reception. Yeah, I you got to go with Genty. And I know he hasn't shown you a ton so far up to this point, but I feel like Genty has to be the start. Right now, we're seeing a massive target share out of San Francisco going to Ricky Pearsall. And I love that, as a person that has Ricky Pearsall, but like you still look at Genty. He comes in as RB15 right below Kyren Williams and ranked 1 above Cam Scatterbo. He's above Travis Etienne at 18, above Javonte Williams. So a top 15 player. And I would imagine if we looked for Jauan Jennings, he would be much further than that. Let me take a look. Where is Jauan Jennings? $39. Datavion Wicks. Christian Kirk at 59. He may make a massive jump. Jauan Jennings. Yeah, Jauan Jennings. I mean, I can't even find him on the I don't know if they thought he was going to be hurt still. I mean, I'm passing Darius Slayton, Jauan Jennings. Here he is. Wow, 91. He's down here with Xavier Hutchinson. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, look, I don't like going off projections because they're always wrong. But if you got one guy that's 15th at the position and the other guy is right at like the 100 mark, sometimes that is convincing enough to be like, okay, if it's a toss up, let me go with the one that's 15, because obviously I'm overthinking it. I Baden said, I need help. Jaylen Warren and Jacoby Myers. Or Jacoby Myers. Jaylen Warren or Jacoby Myers. We're starting Jacobs and Gibbs. Okay. That's a good start. Johnston and Pickens, good wide receivers. We have Herbert at the helm, so I want the Chargers duo. So really, you're just looking at your flex position, Jacoby Myers or Jaylen Warren. I would go with Jaylen Warren. I mean, you're gonna get more. In my opinion, you're gonna get more opportunities in the red zone. The role. You look at Brian Flores schematically. If there's anybody that is going to be able to keep up with the blitzes, I mean, he's the highest blitzing percentage coordinator in the league. The Vikings are going to be blitzing a ton. And what do you do when you're being blitzed, right? You check it down. You check it down. You check it down. You check it down. The way to combat the blitz and to make them have to stop blitzing is to have plays where you snap the ball. It could be a halfback draw from shotgun. It could be a quick throw to Jaylen Warren, a halfback screen. But in a PPR league, like if you're going against a high blitzing defense, you're probably looking at least 5 to 7 catches. And that doesn't include the yards, the touchdown, the goal line touches, and the rushing yards. So I think it's between them two. I think I would give the nod to Warren. And Troy said, sorry, it's loading so slow. Fantastic insight on Harvey, brother. I really appreciate it. No problem, man. No problem. And if you're a Broncos fan, man, I go live during the Broncos games, and then I do a post game too. So hopefully I'll see you around. Would you start Harvey or JCM? Who's JCM? Who's JCM? Oh, Ja'Cory Crockett. I know who you're talking about. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know about this guy until this year. Ja'Cory Crockett Merritt out of Atlanta. He's at RB 32. And then J.K. Dobbins is at RB 20. And then you got RJ Harvey at 37. So you got JCM at 32, Harvey at 37. But Tennessee's going against Houston. If I had to start one of them, I would go with RJ Harvey this week. Number one, we know how atrocious the Bengals defense is. Number two, we know that Denver's going to want to put on a show. Number three, we know that it's possible that Denver could find themselves with a significant lead in this game, which means RJ Harvey is going to have an opportunity to get way more touches than normal. And number four, we know that there's been a lot of pressure from the media to get RJ Harvey involved in the game plan. So what better time to do it than on a national stage? So just going off of those things, especially opponent, I would start RJ Harvey this week. It's the same reason I'm starting Troy Franklin in my flex position. And then Vincent said, no, Johnson, the Saints head in. Oh, gotcha. Let me go back to yours. Juwan Johnson. Oh, okay. Sorry, I read that wrong. Yeah, I would still go Genty though. I mean, absolutely. And you said Genty's RB 34 in sleeper. Where are you seeing him as 15? I'll share my screen. Let me close some of these tabs so this shit can go faster than the speed of. All right. Hopefully this is a little bit faster now. Okay, so this is fantasypros.com. Genti is RB 34, and here he is at 15. And somebody actually has him as high as 11, and 2 other people have him at 17. But yeah, and then Ja'Cory, where was Ja'Cory? I believe he was at 37. No, he was at 32 right here. And then RJ Harvey coming in at 37. There we go. But yeah, hopefully that answers your guys' question. Oh, so you're saying weekly ratings? Oh, right. Okay. No, Vincent, I was talking about weekly ratings. So just going off of the projections of this specific week, not as a whole. And I think when you get into week 3 or week 4, we look at those players and we think, oh, they haven't performed, or maybe you got a guy like Javonte Williams who had 2 touchdowns in week 1, so now he's being ranked in the top 10. It's all very fluid in the beginning of the season. So if you have somebody that you drafted in the first round, like I would say Ashton Genti, I would say don't hit the panic button yet. Hold on to him and see what happens. But in the meantime, he should still be starting until he absolutely proves to you that he's not worthy of a starting job. I just don't know if a first rounder could prove that in only 3 weeks. I would need a larger sample size personally. But that's all I got for you guys today. I'm gonna catch some sleep so that I can be good to go for all the football games tomorrow. Of course, you guys can watch all the games here. I always stream all of the games. Obviously, I'm not showing the games, but I'm talking fantasy football. I'm talking about the scores, and we're just kind of going through all the games together. We got a really cool little community here that watches the game with us. So a lot of you guys I've never seen before. I love having you guys in here. So feel free to join the family and come back tomorrow. You guys are going to really love it. I do this with a Bears fan on Sunday, and I'm a Broncos fan, but we do predictions on the games. We talk also the recap when the games are over. We bring you content every single day. So if this is something you guys are into, definitely, sub if you want to, but more importantly, just come back and join the family. I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you guys tomorrow for NFL football.